I mean, the only reason we get mad is because when we hit a bad shot, we're probably scared to hit another one. I mean, you can shake off one, but so that's start hitting it left. You're worried about hitting the next one left, or you're thinking of other holes that have trouble on the left. But it's just you got to treat each shot like a new shot. And yeah, I tend to find myself sometimes if I've been hitting it left, the next one goes right, and the next one goes left. So kind of overcompensating, but. I mean, there could be a number of reasons why you hit that one left. It doesn't mean you're going to hit everyone left, but it's hard to get that out of your head.
That was a taste, or a tease, of what you'll hear from Kevin Tway in today's show. When we recorded this conversation with featured guest Cary Valentine, the intention was to do just one episode. But he was able to gather so much great information and insights while at both 2020 Hawaii PGA Tour stops, it was only fair to break it into two segments. Also, Cary had forgotten to send me the interview that he did with Xander Schauffele until after we recorded our conversation. That's why I included it at the end of this without Cary's commentary. So today, we'll hear Golf Smarter exclusive interviews not heard anywhere else from PGA Tour pros Kevin Tway, James Hahn, and Xander Schauffele. And it doesn't matter which order you listen, but if you've not heard last week's podcast featuring Graham McDowell, Paul Azinger, Fabian Gomez, and Anabar Lahiri, please check out episode number 727. But first, part 2 Inside the Ropes with PGA Tour pros on their success, failures, and mental game.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Oh, Cary, these conversations are so great. I really enjoy this, and we get a lot of attraction from the podcast audience. They love hearing these too. So thank you again for sharing these with us.
Oh, my joy. And it brings me a great delight knowing we're going to, when I'm interviewing these guys going, this will be cool. Fred will dig this. So it's a joy for me too, Fred.
Tell me a little bit about Kevin Tway.
Yeah, that was, again, a kind of a quick kind of conversation as he was walking to the clubhouse. Yet he was very open and willing to share about the mental game for him. And he kind of clearly shares of here he's been on the tour a number of years and still, it's a challenge for him day in, day out to keep himself mentally strong.
And here's what he had to say about that.
For me, it's just more about getting comfortable out here. When I first came out of college, I got a few starts because I played well in college, but I didn't feel as comfortable or felt like I kind of belonged yet. I was like the young guy, kind of awestruck at some of the players. But after a few years, I kind of, once you have a little bit of success, you start feeling more comfortable. And now I kind of walk around like it's playing golf at any other place. So that was a big thing for me. And mental game's so important. It's a grind out here, and you got to be there mentally for every shot.
It was a quick interview with him, but boy, he gave you a lot of really valuable stuff.
I know, didn't he?
He did. He really did. Like here, just about, we all have bad shots, even the pros. But how does this pro deal with it? Here's what he said.
I mean, the only reason we get mad is because when we hit a bad shot, we're probably scared to hit another one. You can shake off one, but so that's start hitting it left. You're worried about hitting the next one left, or you're thinking of other holes that have trouble on the left. But it's just you got to treat each shot like a new shot. And I tend to find myself sometimes if I've been hitting it left, the next one goes right, and the next one goes left. So kind of overcompensating. But there could be a number of reasons why you hit that one left. It doesn't mean you're going to hit everyone left, but it's hard to get that out of your head.
And one of the elements that you talked about with him, and not the only one, we'll talk about it with James Hahn as well next, but about being in the zone. Why were you questioning these guys about the zone?
Oh, it's another fascination of mine in reference to the mental game, and what it feels like for each guy can be different. And also I'm interested to know about stories of them being in the zone and what happened to their performance.
Well, let's hear what he feels like for him when he's in the zone.
I made 7 birdies in a row a few years ago at the John Deere, and then I parred the next hole, and I birdied the 2 after that. And I remember it was going by so slow, and like I didn't know that I had made that many birdies in a row. Someone in my group actually told me, but yeah, I mean, it goes through slow. Everything comes kind of easy. It's all what we try to get into, but it rarely happens. But that was the one time that kind of happened for me.
But you're not always in the zone, and sometimes it disappears instantly. Here's what he said about falling out of the zone.
I had like 2 holes left, and I hit like this terrible drive like into the trees, and I wanted to hit like this crazy Phil Mickelson shot, but like my caddy wouldn't let me, and it's just like made bogey there, and like that I was out of it from then. And I only had 1 hole left, which was good, but yeah, just a bad shot kind of knocks you out of it, kind of wakes you up.
Yeah. And Kevin Tway, he clearly admits that it's not his strong suit.
I struggle with the mental game, and I do this every day, so you gotta just be patient is like the key. I mean, practicing helps with the confidence, but mentally, I don't know, it's just tough.
Let's move on to James Hahn. This guy, talk about humility, right? Now, when did you meet with James Hahn? What course, what tournament was it, and what day?
Yeah, so initially I met James a few years ago, and I did an interview with him, and it was one of those situations of when you meet someone that you just have one of those connections that clicked. And I found James to be, as I've gotten to know him over these years, a few years, he's very inquisitive. He's almost like a child in a sense, like very curious to know about you and the world that you come from and what's going on and all of those things. And so it is due to that, it's kind of created I'd say a more friendly or easygoing kind of relationship with him, where we talk about all kinds of things when we meet, about life and our families and all of that stuff. So at the same time, I really appreciated our conversation and what he had to share in the interview.
And you talked to him after one of his rounds, competitive rounds?
Yes, I did. And that was on Thursday of the Sony Open, the first round. And he's coming back he was injured, and he's coming back this season. So he has a little bit added extra pressure to perform well because of maintaining his tour card. I got a little insight into that as he was sharing with other reporters about that as well. Just of, the kind of other pressures these guys go through, even outside of the ropes, to maintain their tour card in this case,
Interesting. Well, you asked him, as we were talking about earlier, you asked him about what it's like to be in the zone, and he actually said that he was in it that day. Here's what he said.
I feel like I've been in the zone many times, and it's a calm feeling. Everything slows down, and I have very clear thought. And I feel like that's the best way I can describe being in the zone, is very clear thought. And so to the point where, let's say, a lot of my shots today, I had a certain number, a certain shot shape that I wanted to pick, and I just kind of can feel the swing, and I can already know where the ball is going. And so I felt like I was in the zone today. And it doesn't have to be an 8 under par round. It can be a 1 under par round on a day like today. But it's just being in complete control of your thought and the speed at which you're doing it. I feel like that's key, is that you can control your thought, but if you're thinking too fast or too slow, then you're not really in the zone. And so today was a great example of how I was able to do all those things, and played really good today.
And then how when he's in the zone, what it feels like, and what he does with it.
It's not exhilarating. It's calming. Because on a day like today, there's so many bad places you can hit it because of the wind. If the wind doesn't take it, I'm going to hit it here. If it takes it too much, I'm going to hit it here. And if it doesn't go and I get too much spin, it's going to go here. And if I hit it too hard and goes through the wind, I'm going to hit it here. And there's just all these different things versus, no, like I know where my ball's going. It's going here. And there's no other option. Like, it's going to happen. And it's like a chess game. And I was so much in control today of giving myself the biggest circle to aim at, because a lot of times I can't control whether the wind's going to blow 20 miles per hour, 30 miles per hour in the middle of my swing or when the ball's in the air. And so knowing like, okay, I'm going to hit it here, but if the wind blows a lot harder, I'm going to be on the right edge of the circle. And if it doesn't blow, I'm going to be on the left edge of the circle. But it's in this circle, and my circle is on the green. And it's either I have a 5-foot putt or a 15-foot putt, And it's like, and when that happens, it's very like, oh yeah, like I meant to do that, and I knew that was going to happen, and I accounted for that. Like I hit a lot of shots early on, 10, 15 feet. And it's like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen, and it's like, even like gusts, big gusts in the middle, it's like, oh, I can't believe it took it way over there. It's like, well, it's still inside my circle, like I knew that was going to happen, and that's where it ended up because of the gust. And if it didn't gust, I would have been a lot better shot, but I knew that was going to, and it's just a weird feeling. And so it was very mentally draining to play in conditions like this, more so because of all the different variables.
Unbelievable stuff, man. I just loved hearing about how he is like, it's just there. You're playing to a circle, and if you hit it, you're good. Right. So good.
Yeah. That particular day, it was extremely windy.
Yeah. And so he was still able to play well, but just, there was a calmness about him when he was there.
Yes.
Then you asked him about giving advice to some of your college players. Here's what he said about advice to amateur players and college golfers.
Definitely practice. That's number one. Never to lose the faith. I mean, you have to understand that it's a very tough game that we're playing, and it takes a lot of persistence to get an inch better in this game. There's going to be a lot of days where you feel like you're taking a step back. And I think in this game, the one thing that's final, that's definite, 100% of the time, is your score at the end of the round. But I don't think that should be an indication of how good you're playing or how you're improving. And if you can find out a way to judge and grade yourself on how well you're improving, and you actually see those numbers, whether it's your proximity to the hole from inside 125, or your up and down percentage from the bunker, or your driving accuracy off the tee, your par 3 scoring average, your par 5 scoring average. You just break it down into different facets of the game and see what your percentages are now, and then an average over the year. And I think that's kind of where a lot of players should focus their attention on, because let's say in December of this year, right, I might miss more fairways and miss more greens and not get anything up and down. But if my average is going up, it's like the stock market. If my average is going up, I know I'm getting better. Today, that day in time doesn't judge how good of a golfer I am or if I've been improving. Even in the stock market, there's a lot of dips, up and down, but over the last 4 or 5 years, it seemed like it's always been going up. And so you just have to kind of ride that wave.
And I mentioned how humble he came across, James Hahn came across. And again, you ask about heroes, as you did with others. I thought some guys go right to Tiger or Phil or Arnie. That's not where he started. Here's what James Hahn had to say when you asked him who his heroes were.
Probably my dad, my mom, and my dad. I've always looked up to Greg Norman, Curtis Strange when he won back-to-back U.S. Opens, Tiger Woods, obviously. Didn't really get to watch any of the older guys, but had a flair for Lee Trevino and like Jumbo Ozaki, those guys that just had a lot of character. Chichi Rodriguez, these guys that made a living playing the game, but they never lost sight of who they were. And so that's kind of how I want to live my life is, these guys out on tour, I feel like I'm battling against machines. They all come out of college. They're all 6'4", and they bomb the ball 320 off the tee. And the majority of them had really good golf instructors and grew up on a country club and played AJGA tournaments and spent thousands and thousands of dollars traveling the United States playing in competition, and I never did any of that. And so in a way I'm more of the Chichi Rodriguez, the Lee Trevino of the tour, and I don't want to pretend like I'm not, So, to each their own. And, I think I've made a pretty good career of what I've been given, and more motivation for the kids growing up that, it is possible with the little funding that I've had, and the instructors that haven't seen, like some of these guys out here that, you just kind of, if there's a will, there's a way. I know it sounds very cliche, but, I'm living proof that anything is possible.
That's just beautiful. And then his passions in life. What is it that are his passions outside of golf? So you wanted to know things about other than golf with these guys.
Yes, too. I wanted to, kind of ask some questions outside the box and get to know them more as people as well as golfers. And it was fun to do it.
Awesome. Well, here's what he came up with when you asked him about his passions.
I have a passion for making people laugh or making people smile. That's kind of, how I want to live my life, to just be happy. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she's the exact same as me. We just try to make each other laugh. We have a good time doing it, and things that I'm passionate about is I do like to work out a lot. I like to be healthier. I like to read books. I like to learn as much as I can, but to me, I love the feeling of learning, learning in general versus like the feeling of learning, I feel is different. Like when I learn something, I want to tell my wife, I want to tell you, I want to tell everyone, like, hey, like I just learned something really cool, versus like just learning something just to learn it, like, oh, okay, and then saving it for a rainy day. It's like, no, I want to share, like, hey, I just learned something really cool. And so, I feel like we as humans only use 10% of our brain. Some of us use less. And I feel like it'd be pretty cool to just get a little more knowledge and that extra 1% of just trying to be happier and smarter in life and go about my way, the best that I can.
Cary, thank you so much for sharing this stuff. I just love it. Give you a lot of credit for walking out there and recording this stuff without a press pass. It's pretty impressive.
Oh, well, it's as I said, yes. I mean, here's an opportunity to meet with these guys. They're generally very generous when I approach them and talk to them about, the purpose of why I'm going to talk to them and interview them. So I appreciate it. And it's also I'm doing these interviews for podcasts and magazines, but I'm also doing it to kind of research. I'm extremely fascinated about the mental game. And I think things that I've developed and have worked with different pro athletes and amateurs is on the cutting edge. And so I stay humble about it, but hungry. And I'm curious, I'm curious to check out, what do these guys know or what do they don't know? What are they working on?
So you had also an opportunity to talk to an up-and-comer who's made a name for himself the last couple of years, Xander Schauffele, right?
Yes, at the Century Tournament. And he was also, again,
and what'd you find out there?
Oh, I was, last year I wanted to interview him at the Sony Open. It just, timing just didn't work out right. But I've been very impressed with his demeanor and his play and demeanor as a person. So it was a wonderful opportunity to talk to him about the journey he's been on from college to the pros and how he has gone through that process, and also obviously winning at the pro level.
Yeah, but what was interesting is when you asked him about that transformation.
Yeah, transformed, a good word. It's a different game. I'd say playing as an amateur and playing as a professional. Initially, it's you're playing for your job and your well-being, which is still the truth, but a little more comfort now at this stage. Obviously, tournament champions out here in Maui's unique because it means you've won. So there's a different level of comfort each year that develops, and it's crazy looking back on the stages from junior golf to amateur golf to I guess semi-pro, if you want to call it, mini tours, and to a young guy on the developmental tour, and then to the PGA Tour, a rookie on the tour, and then being on here for my fourth year now. So time flies, and you definitely learn a lot along the way in terms of how you react to pressure and how you cope with things.
And do you cope with things by just letting them slide by, or do you feel yourself getting into the zone? Is there such a thing as getting into the zone? Do you believe that can happen?
Definitely. I think individuals, anyone who spends enough time at anything, any sport, or even if you're working in an office environment, I'd say everyone, when they're focused enough, they get to a certain zone, as you want to call it, or level of focus where everything's blocked out, and it's almost like a black space, I guess, to where you don't really remember a whole lot until you really think back on it.
Yeah, but when you're in it, Cary, I just love this story that he tells about being in the zone and then all of a sudden realizing he was in the zone, and what happens next.
Yeah, at the Masters last year, I was leading the tournament, or tied for the lead, and on the 15th tee box, I quickly snapped myself out of it by reminding myself that I was leading the Masters. So I've been on both sides of it. Last year here, I shot 62, 63 in the final round, and that was sort of an all-day blackout experience. The first hole I bogeyed, which was pretty awakening, and from there on out, it was sort of a free-for-all. And I've seen both sides of what focus can do to you.
We've all seen all sides of what focus can do to you. But if you feel that you've fallen out of it, how do you rattle your cage to get back in? Usually
I'll bogey a couple holes or do something horrible, which will kind of kick me into gear. Usually I'm in cruise control until I'm not, and then I need to sort of step it up. So maybe that's something to be said about my level of focus starting the day. Well, listen, the guy's only 26 years old, but we'll still listen to him if he has some advice, at least for us, on what we can do as amateurs to improve our golf game. It's tricky. It depends if the amateur practices a lot or not. Anytime you can think back to a positive thought. I mean, fear is the biggest thing. The unknown is what creates the fear, and when you haven't faced a certain reality on the golf course, you'll always become scared no matter what. So if you practice a lot, you can try and think back to that moment where you're practicing that exact shot or a similar shot to where you were able to succeed, or even if you failed, you can kind of relate to what not to do in that situation. And if you don't practice a lot, I'd say just have some sort of positive outlook on what you're trying to do, and probably start practicing would be my advice.
Awesome. Thank you, Cary. It's great to talk to you again, and I always look forward to having you come back and sharing these great insights that you're able to get from the pros.
Super. And can I share one other thing, Fred? Just because it's kind of new. It's a new website that's called championyourinnergame.com. And that's kind of my new platform about sharing about the mental game approach with from different angles, from the athletic angle or actually business or relationship areas too.
championyourinnergame.com.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. All right, bud.
All right. Thanks for having me.
I'm sorry we have to wait for another year, but I look forward to doing it again next January with you.
You got it. Aloha and a hui ho.
Once again, Cary Valentine's website is championyourinnergame.com. And we look forward to him coming back next year at this time with more interesting insights from inside the ropes. This week on episode number 44 of Golf Smarter Mulligans, I'm going to break my own rule of providing game improvement content only. Our guest is Mark Frost, author of one of my all-time favorite historical nonfiction books. All time. It's called The Match. Now, beyond being a prolific author and creating some really important golf books that have been made into movies, Mark Frost is an incredible storyteller with a gorgeous voice. And in this episode, he tells us the story of the match, how it came to be, and why it could never happen in modern-day golf and media. Frequently, people ask me, hey, what's you've been doing this a while. What's your favorite interview or episode that you've done on Golf Smarter? And usually, the match, this episode, this conversation is in my top 5. Golf Smarter Mulligans is brought to you by twoguyswithgolfballs.com, where you can get premium used golf balls at a fraction of the cost of new ones. It's time to start thinking about your round for this year. So stock up on premium used golf balls so you don't have to pay full price. Get the Eagle quality. You're getting quality the same as a brand new ball, except it's maybe been hit once or it's got some logo or marking on it. But it'll perform like a brand new ball at half the price. Check them out. And don't forget to use Golf Smarter at checkout for an additional 10% off every order, every time. And that offer is expiring on April 1 this year, 2020. That's twoguyswithgolfballs.com. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, follow @GolfSmarter on Twitter or Instagram. Read our content in LinkedIn. Check us out on Facebook. Or just click the Hey Fred button at golfsmarter.com.